All right, man, peace. So, if you've seen the video that I did on Jason Kidd's firing from the Milwaukee Bucks, you'll see that Stephen A. Smith wanted to cover that story from the angle that there are now a dearth of quote unquote African American coaches in the NBA. And he feels like there are verifiable reasons for that. One of them being that the so-called black players in the NBA do not stand up for the so-called black coaches. Now, I've done a few videos on that sentiment or something approximating that sentiment called Do Black Players Respect Black Coaches? Of course, Stephen A is going to talk about his views on that issue, and I'm going to chime in. Also, please pay very close attention to Stephen A's stance right here, how he's standing. You see that he's forming the pyramid with his hands and also with his legs. What that tells me is that he's more concerned about a frat brother or a fellow Boule member, which Jason Kidd most likely is, being terminated from his position and him showing that he's loyal to his brotherhood. I would pretty much be ready to guarantee that 99% of black coaches, not just in the NBA, but in professional sports, are members of some type of fraternity or lodge. And I'm sure that Stephen A is standing like that and holding his hands like that to show not just Jason Kidd, but all of his other brothers in Omega Psi Phi and in the quote unquote Divine Nine that he's repping for the cause. It would not shock me at all if Jason Kidd is a fellow Omega Psi Phi fraternity member. But anyway, let's see what Stephen A has to say about this.
You might not feel this way, but something amazing has been happening in the NBA. You might have missed it. NBA players actually know how to keep quiet. They may not know how to keep quiet over protest issues involving the President of the United States of America, or other social issues where it would be impossible to aim criticism in their direction because, well, criticism can't possibly come your way when you're willing to take a position almost anyone with sense would take.
The NBA players are not taking their positions on quote unquote social justice because it's what's sensible. They're taking their positions on social justice, quote unquote, because they know that they're not going to face any backlash due to the fact that the modern day mass media is liberal. And they know that they're not going to face any real backlash from the modern day mass media. That's why they're taking their stances. In addition to that, they understand that the corporations that own them are the ones that are filling them with many of the ideologies that they're co-signing on social media. And speaking of social media, they know that most of the internet revolutionaries online are going to congratulate them, in their show of rebelliousness. Remember, most of current revolutionary culture is based in low-level Marxism, meaning chaos energy, promoting chaos and rebellion, and not really having a plan. The people who have the plan are the corporations. They're the ones who are going to reap the benefits of the chaos that is promoted or propagated. But to make a long story short, that's why these athletes are taking the stances that they're taking. It has nothing to do with them doing it because it's what's sensible. They're doing it because it's what's lucrative. Now, do I believe that many of them actually believe in most of the social justice tactics that they're using? Yeah, they do. They believe it because they've been indoctrinated with it for most of their life that they should be fighting for that hug.
See the 2016 ESPYs, will you? But here's the thing. When it comes to the dismissal of black NBA coaches, the dwindling numbers that are appearing before our very eyes, where is all the noise of support from black players?
You're not going to see much support from black players when NBA coaches are removed because, as I've stated in the previous videos that I've done on this topic, you must understand that the root of all issues is culture. So when many of these so-called black players are raised in environments without strong black male figures in the home, and they're cultivated in these atmospheres that are corrosive towards black male growth, of course they're going to have a subconscious disdain for a black male authority figure. They spent their whole life in a house or in a home or an apartment with a black female who either overtly or in a very subdued way will try to get her children to believe that a black man is not worth respecting. In many of these homes where little black boys are being raised, they may have 2 or 3 sisters and a mother, and they're getting bullied because they're male. Or they're just, or they're getting talked down to or denigrated because they may resemble the father in some way. So there is a lot of subconscious programming that many of these young black boys are put through that shows in crunch time moments when you would expect some form of solidarity. Solidarity is not created in adulthood. It's implemented from a child. And that's why I always harp on that theme of culture. Right? Culture is, it's your background, it's your history, it's your language, it's your belief system, it's your affinity for your fellow tribe member or clan member. It's not about color, it's about culture. And that is what so-called black people don't really grasp. Like, since my channel has started growing, I get a lot of people come in the comments who maybe watch 1 or 2 videos and think that they understand what I'm trying to say. And they quite frankly, make an ass of themselves trying to put forth these pro-black or Afrocentric ideologies on my channel. And they won't even move back to Africa. Why is that? Because they even understand intrinsically that Africans do not believe what they believe. And yet they try to get other so-called black people here in America to believe that dumb shit that they're trying to promote. Anywhere that you go where you have indigenous populations, they'll tell you that it's about their tribe, not about their skin color. Period. And these are the problems. And Stephen A. has a slave mentality. Nothing against him. When I say a slave mentality, I'm not talking about, from a strict definition perspective. But he's just somebody who approaches everything from an employee perspective. He doesn't look at it from a boss perspective. So he's addressing the problem from the bottom up, not from the top down. Why are you addressing the players? You should be addressing the fact that there are so few black owners. But he's conditioned to believe that everyone should be begging the Caucasian man for a chance. Really, what he's asking for is for black players, quote unquote, when he says stick up for their coach, he means go beg the white man to keep that coach. And that's not how you solve problems. That's basically how you put your finger into holes that are coming into the dam or into the dike. There's leaks springing everywhere. You only have 10 fingers. So the real solution is that you have to move away from that river that's constantly flooding you over and breaking down that dam. You have to move away to higher ground. You have to build a new house somewhere else. So-called black people don't grasp that because they want that hug. That is the job of boule Negroes like Stephen A. Smith, to keep you believing that you have to covet the acceptance of Caucasian male hegemony with these socialist reforms like the Rooney Rule. You have to interview a black man every year, like all this nonsense. Because the so-called black man is scared to have his own. He's scared to form his own. He's scared to have his own league and be self-defined. And a lot of that is predicated on how he's raised. He's raised in environments where he's told to believe that, that the pinnacle of success is being accepted by a Caucasian man. Why is that? Because that's what many of these liberal black women believe. And they're being raised by the liberal black woman. Period.
Yes, I know that both LeBron James and Dwayne Wade echoed words of support for David Fizdale when he was axed in Memphis. But I'm not talking about obvious support from the peanut gallery, the kind that can easily be dismissed due to personal relationships. I'm alluding to the bigger issue of black coaches being pushed out.
Yeah, like how you've been trying to push out Marvin Lewis for years. Like that, right?
Of a tolerance level that has vastly lowered where they're concerned, and how it's been enabled by a body of NBA players who seem unwilling or flat out scared to speak out against this alarming trend.
And I also suspect that Stephen A. Smith is speaking as a proxy for former fired black coaches, most likely people like Isaiah Thomas and other disgruntled black coaches who were fired, Mike Woodson, who felt like they didn't get the protection that they deserved and they didn't get the assistance or the aid from so-called black players, quote unquote. It's so funny to me how quick many of these old head black men are to talk about solidarity when you were the one who had the chance to program solidarity into your sons by being there. Nothing against Isaiah Thomas, one of my favorite all-time players, brilliant person, but he failed his sons. He has 2 homosexual sons. So I'm just saying that I suspect that he's the one who is, kind of putting the battery in Stephen A's back to do this, as well as other fired black coaches. Make sure that your son is being raised correctly. And then you won't have to worry about whether the younger generation of black males will be there to assist you, so-called black. I mean, ask yourself, what is it that you have to teach your son? Maybe you wouldn't be so quick to leave that situation with your quote-unquote baby mama and your children if you felt like you actually had something to bring to the table. You can't double back 25 years later when you're 50-some years old and say, woe is me, there's nobody here to help me. If you were a three-dimensional thinker, you would have thought in the future, and you would have said, in order for there to be success, we have to establish a cycle of success so that people know how important it is to do their part while they're here on the earth. The so-called black man doesn't think like that. He thinks like a woman. A lot of cats do. When I say I don't mean every brother, but a lot of brothers think like the woman that raised them. That's how a lot of so-called black men think. All right? And that's why I harp on that, why it's so important to not be concerned about the liberal black woman and her nonsense. Leave them alone. You have to get your own shit together. If you need to ostracize or isolate yourself, that's what you need to do to make sure that you formulate your plan and not get caught up in a pair of nice titties and a fat ass, because all that pair of nice titties and a fat ass is going to lead you is back into this system of the beast where you have to worship that Caucasian image and everything going around in this society. Right? You have to use this system. You don't become a part of it. You use it so that you don't end up like Stephen A. Smith on TV begging young black men to help out black coaches. No, that starts in the home. The coach is a reflection of a father figure. If these young black males are not raised to respect the image of black authority in the home, they're not going to do it in the workplace.
Make whatever case you want to justify Fizdale, Earl Watson in Phoenix, or now Jason Kidd in Milwaukee getting fired. But how is it that barely a word is uttered when white contemporaries who get to keep their jobs? Fred Hoiberg is still employed in Chicago, earning $5 million a year. Scott Brooks is in the nation's capital, earning an average of $7 million per, with his Wizards underachieving. Dave Yeager has a job in Sacramento paying him $4 million per year, in case y'all missed it. And Brett Brown is in the midst of an extension in Philadelphia, despite having a 97-274 record.
Well, whose fault is that, Stephen A? Are you saying that you want the Caucasian owners to sell out on their own form of male rulership and fire the coach, which is a reflection of them? That's not going to happen, sir. You cannot blame the black players for that. You have to look at the culture that they're raised in. You have to look at the fact that because we have such a weak culture, we have a weak economy, that means that we are not able to create billionaires. We have to create billionaires so that they can own. When they own, then they can stipulate their business practices within their organization. That's how that goes. Okay? You should be focusing on people like Oprah Winfrey and Bob Johnson and asking them, begging them to come own a franchise. You should be talking about Sean Puffy Combs and his attempts to own a franchise so that you can push and promote for so-called black ownership, quote unquote black rulership, so that they can stipulate the rules of engagement. Stop looking at most of these little NBA players to run the management to help a coach keep a job. Maybe some of these black coaches can't coach worth shit. Who knows? There's a lot of white coaches that can't coach worth shit, but they're not going to get fired. Why is that? Because they stick together. It is what it is. If you don't want to have your own, you can't tell somebody else how to run their shit.
Do y'all get the point? No.
I don't think you get the point, brother.
No, I'm not calling for folks to be fired. Not any of them, because there are mitigating circumstances that warrant consideration and understanding. What I'm asking is simple. How in the hell can a league where more than 70% of its players are African American have barely anything to say at all about the diminished number of black coaches? Where the hell is your voice now? The way things are looking, by the end of the season, the only black coaches we suspect will have head coaching jobs will be Dwayne Casey in Toronto and Nate McMillan in Indiana. Outside of that, we don't know about Mark Jackson, about David Fizdale, even about Monty Williams, whether any of them will get a second chance.
Well, that's part of the problem, bro. You're always looking for a chance from a so-called white man. How long are you going to keep begging? How long are you going to keep begging? It's like you ask a woman out one time, she says no, leave her alone. How long you going to keep begging? If she's truly attracted to you and she says no the first time and she's trying to make you chase, if you stop chasing her, she'll start chasing you. Believe me. If the so-called black man decided that he wanted to detach from a lot of the conventions in this society that he feels like are disrespecting him, if he's as lucrative an asset as he believes he is and that he is in all reality, so-called black man is the most valuable commodity in this society, more valuable than gold or silver, believe me. There's a reason why the so-called black man makes up 6% of the U.S. population, but makes up 70% of the NFL, 75% of the NBA. They literally generate billions. They're worth more than bars of gold. Okay? That's the bottom line. And then when you count how much this economy generates off of throwing so-called black men in the prison system, after they have the black man launder the money that is generated by importing illegal drugs into America. The black man literally is most likely 50 to 60% of the U.S. economy. If you understood that, then you could have power. But you cannot get power by begging or asking. You have to have power by having knowledge of what you're worth. You don't know what you're worth, the people who are taking advantage of you and making money off of you are not going to tell you. A pimp is never going to tell a hoe how much she's worth.
Where are the black players on that issue? That's what I'm asking. I think it's an appropriate question, especially on a day like today following Jason Kidd's firing, when the star player who stepped up on his behalf happens to be from Greece.
Yeah, but what does that even mean? The man is the so-called black man, Stephen A. So that's lame.
Shut up.
But anyway, I just hope that brothers understand that you're never going to get acceptance by asking those who you claim are oppressing you to give you your freedom or your liberties or what have you. You have to be free within yourself, and then everything else will follow suit. And once you validate yourself, and once again, it does not matter whether you are working in a Fortune 500 company or whether you're the one handling the fries at McDonald's. If you have a plan for yourself and you know who you are, everything will work out. You plan your life and then you work your plan and you do the best that you can. You don't allow yourself to be evaluated or judged by other people. Everything in life is a process. You'll get to where you want to go if you stick to it and you phase out all the negative energy. And once again, it does not matter whether you're in a high position right now or a low position. But anyway, peace.